probably get rid of that recording thing. Greatest ever distance swimmers. For those of you that don't remember, Kieren broke 11 world records and is the first person in history to hold Olympic, World, Commonwealth and Pan-Pacific titles simultaneously. He broke over 40 Australian records during a career spanning from 1989 to 2000. Amazing. I think we forget those things, Kieren, when we're now in the new life, helping us develop sport in the country, that those records are just flabbergasting. And it's so fantastic to have you here today. And thank you for taking some time. And we'd love to hear a little bit about your experience with volunteering. And I know it is a huge focus for your team at the Australian Sports Commission. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time, and welcome, Kieren Perkins.
Thanks, Lisa, and thank you for that introduction. That was very flattering of you. I don't think about it myself much, honestly. It's we're very busy doing what we're doing, but look, appreciate the opportunity to talk to everybody today, and I also need to acknowledge your ongoing leadership as a member of the National Sports Volunteer Coalition. You know, that work that we're doing to try to build a national program of work and alignment is incredibly important, and your support there has been fantastic. So thank you for that. I'd also like to add my acknowledgement of country. I'm coming to everyone today from the Gadigal People's Land of the Eora Nation. I'd like to acknowledge your elders past, present and emerging, and thank them for having us. Look, as we all know, and I know that there's an element of preaching to the converted here, but volunteers really do play, you know, just an incredibly critical role to sport in this country. You know, from the work that we do, we know that there's around 2.9 million Australians volunteering in sport, which is delivering over $4 billion worth of labour activity and input, which is absolutely outstanding. And of course, volunteering is also linked to a very wide range of individual and community benefits. And the sports sector's traditional ways of engaging with volunteers are not necessarily effectively responding to or embracing, I guess, the shifts that are happening in society, including, of course, the recent impact of COVID-19 that you mentioned, Lisa. You know, the recent Ausplay data that we've done has shown that there's been over 100,000 volunteers that have left sport in the last few years. And not only have we lost a substantial number of volunteers, but the volunteers that do remain, you know, they're on average fulfilling more than 3 roles, which of course is just going to burn people out. It's not sustainable expecting them to do that much work to help sport keep going. So sport really does need to reimagine, you know, how it is that we recruit, how we retain, and then how it is that we really do put volunteers first to help them be able to navigate what it is that you know, we desperately need them for to ensure that sport just keeps operating successfully in Australia. So from an ASC perspective, you know, we're helping support this reimagining of volunteering by trying to work differently and celebrating the roles that volunteers do play. As was mentioned, we did earlier this year help form the National Sport Volunteer Coalition. That group is, you know, it's 10 people that have come together from across sport, government and multicultural groups. And we're really trying to, you know, use that to help everyone get involved in seeking, you know, ways to advocate and help deliver change in the volunteering environment. And that led in September to the launch of the Sport Volunteer Coalition Action Plan, which I was really proud to be a part of. And we were able to get our new Federal Sports Minister, Annika Wells, on board to reinforce the importance of this plan. Four key themes have come in together in that. We are looking to celebrate, empower, reimagine and innovate in volunteering. And in the work to get to that point, the Coalition consulted with state and territory governments, community associations, NSOs, NSODs, SSOs, and to help us all develop the plan. Because really, at the end of the day, volunteering is a shared priority across our state and government territory governments and all levels within our sport system and beyond. We were also really proud last week that we announced our MOU with Volunteering Australia. And this has seen the two organisations working hand in hand on a number of initiatives. And we really do look forward to sharing our vision for sport volunteers at the National Volunteer Conference, which is coming up in February. and it's very much about celebrating volunteers in sport, making sure that that's a key focus and helping everybody understand just the massive impact that volunteers do have. We're also really proud that for the first time in the AIS Sport Performance Awards, which are actually coming up here in Sydney tomorrow. It's why I'm here at the moment. We for the first time are presenting a Volunteer of the Year award. And it really is wonderful that we've been able to see the diversity of lived experience that have come through in the applications for that award. And the key themes that have emerged from the applications that have come across from community were that real sense of belonging, the opportunity to make friends, and the positive benefits on health and well-being that can occur through that community connection and volunteering, which is another wonderful piece of the puzzle that we're bringing together as we try to ensure that this industry of volunteering is better understood, better supported and recognised. And so, as we work with our state sporting associations, a really key deliverable for us in the first year of the plan is to understand what resources exist to support volunteers throughout the system. As I know you guys know well, depending on where you land and which part of the environment you're looking to volunteer in, your experience can be quite different. So really coming together to see where we can find those best practices, bring them up, but also help evolve and develop the resources so that it is easier for volunteers to know where to go, to know where they can find information about recruitment, management, recognition of the work they do, and understanding how they deliver their work really well to just to engage that desire to be a volunteer and make it as easy as possible. And some of the recent work that's been done is really reinforcing the critical role that the SSAs play in recognising that strategic importance of volunteers and providing support to them to make sure that we can get the best experience for everyone that's wanting to be involved. And one of the things that we've noticed in that work is that many of the SSAs do mention volunteers in their strategic plans, but we do need to work collectively to provide more than just basic information to local clubs to really help them uplift that experience. We do that to ensure that we're supporting volunteers to solve key problems that are faced at the community level I was going to say post-COVID environment, in this more COVID normal environment, maybe is the way to put it. But we need to really support people with the recruitment, retention, and the recognition of volunteers. And we're certainly excited to be collaborating in the sector and hopefully, finding ways where we can help fill that gap and really drive outcomes. So I do, again, I just want to thank everybody for being involved. Thank you to Lisa and the team for having me. My sporting experience in life would never have achieved what it did without volunteers. There's been many over the years who've had massive impact on me and my sporting career, whether it was Mrs. Tanner making sure that we were in the marshalling area actually on time to compete in our events, or all the people that provided the timekeeping, the food, the organisational skills to really enable our sport to run. It provided the platform for me to get there, and we're very much committed to doing what we can to help modernise and bring more and more people into being involved in volunteering, so that our sports sector can continue to thrive. And so I do encourage everybody, if you haven't had the chance yet to read the Volunteer Action Plan, to get in there, have a bit of a look and understand, what we're moving towards and what we're thinking, so that we can all help support each other and how we can reimagine volunteering in sport. And also, of course, anything that you can do to show your public support for the delivery of the plan. There's a QR code in there that Lisa's going to share after my talk. And we'd love to have your logo added to the web pages there if that's appropriate. Now is the time, absolutely. Let's put people first and foster a really positive and safe experience for everyone that's involved in sport, and especially our volunteers. So thank you all for having me today. I appreciate the opportunity to have the chat, and I really look forward to continuing to work with you all to see us deliver and make great use of the attention that sport is going to and is getting in the lead up to the Commonwealth Games in 26 in Victoria, and of course Brisbane 32. Thanks everybody, and thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you, Kieren. Fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. And yes, look, it's a great link between the work that Kieren's team are doing and the work that we're doing at Grassroots in Victoria, and resources will be shared around, and we're supporting each other in that. So thank you so much, Kieren. We'll let you stay on or sprint off or whatever you need to do. I know you've got to sprint off to other things, and we'll go into a bit more detail. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you at the swimming.
Definitely. Merry Christmas, everyone. Have a great holiday, and yeah, we'll see you all soon. Thank you, Kieren.
Thank you so much. So fantastic to have Kieren on the line to talk about what's happening at the national level. We're obviously focusing on our resources at the state level, but linking into what's happening nationally and the insights that are created from also, obviously Volunteering Victoria with our partnership, but Volunteering Australia as well, and the Australian Sports Commission. So that's fantastic. I'm now going to switch across to Gillian Manson, who's been working tirelessly on this project on behalf of Vicsport, Regional Sport Vic, and Volunteering Vic and Sport and Recreation Victoria, a big mouthful, to give you a little bit more detail about the resources. And we'll obviously be providing you with links to the website, because the first lot of resources are up on the Volunteering Victoria website and linked from our website at Vicsport, and also from Megan Mayman's website at Regional Sport Vic. But welcome, Gillian. Take us through a bit of the details. So the Sports Online, who are involved very closely in this project through their membership with VV, are going to find out exactly what's going on and be able to have a look at the resources from today. Thank you, Gillian.
Thanks very much, Lisa, and welcome everybody. Thank you for your time. I know you're all busy, so finding the time to spend an hour with us is really awesome. Just to let you know the concepts that are guiding us as we create this project, which we want to help to provide value to your club members as well as you. It's a partnership, as we've said a number of times. It includes not only Vicsport, Volunteering Victoria, Regional Sports Victoria, but very heavily supported by Department of Sport and Rec. So we see this as something that as important to and valuable to go to all of us who spend time in sport. We've created a community sport volunteer task force, which put together people from sport, from academia, from the disability sector. They provide us some guidance and oversight to the project. So the strategies that we bring up are put into a context that we hope makes sure that we're trying to meet best practice in whatever we do. Drilling down from that, I think one of the exciting parts is the involvement of Volunteering Victoria, who have an enormous amount of expertise. So we wanted to allow you to become members of them. You've got a free membership available for the 2022-23 membership year, and we encourage you to take up that membership to not only see the sport-specific resources we've created, but the other information that goes there. We hope that by seeing what you can get this year, that this will encourage you to take up membership into following years. Where we've started to look at this is we're creating fact sheets and toolkits that embed the Volunteering Victoria knowledge, but make it specifics for sport. And we're creating toolkits of items that clubs need to save them creating their own. So the idea is to say, I think we know a lot about volunteering in sport, but we know we can know a lot more. So by putting it together in this way, we're trying to create a whole that is accessible and usable. We're creating case study videos. They're not up yet, but we're wanting to show clubs, people who are in clubs with their real life experiences. If you have anyone you would like to spotlight in that or let me know about, please get back to me and we will do it. So, and we're also working very closely with Megan and the team at Regional Sports Victoria and the Regional Sports Assemblies to create that accessibility and hopefully to embed this knowledge into our regionally based clubs. There's a couple of contexts that we're using or approaches. The first approach is we want to encourage, Chad, change by embedding new practices in clubs. We want, and that there's a couple of concepts we've used to guide that. All of us have volunteered or are still volunteering in sport. And so that we know that we're under-resourced, sport is under-resourced, we're time poor, primarily volunteer. And apart from that, volunteering is a really broad topic. And when you look at the topic, your eyes glaze and go, well, where do I start? So we've decided to break the topic into very simple and accessible areas, and then create fact sheets, tools and case studies which are accessible anywhere, which address those narrow areas. And that's to allow us, a club, to go, it's a big topic, but I only need to know this section. I'll go to that section, I'll access that information and get things that are valuable to me now. It helps people who are time poor to get to what they need when they need it. The second approach that we've taken is we want to encourage clubs to have a culture of continuously improving their volunteer practices. You can't do all of this at once. To try to do it all at once probably means it won't happen. So again, what we've tried to do is break it down into those smaller topics, create very sport-specific and action-specific resources. And this is where you become really important. We're creating a sport industry group within Volunteering Victoria, where we kick off this project, Create Things, but you will make it come alive by bringing your thoughts, your ideas, and what we can do better and what we can think about. So those are the key things that we're using to try to make this a project that we want clubs and yourselves to be part of. To give you an idea of the look of the work that we've done, and you will be able to get on to the sport-specific area of Volunteering Victoria's website very shortly. It's up live. You can be sent there from the RSV and the Vicsport page already. But you'll see on the left of the screen there, we've broken down volunteering into 6 steps. It's an action cycle. And so you only need to go to the bit that you need if you're a club. If you want to go to all 6, that's awesome. If you can do that, that's fantastic. But if you only want to know a bit about recruitment, go there. If you just want to know about planning, but you're okay with other stuff, you go there. So you can see the look of the action cycle. And then we've created quite a simple look in terms of how the fact sheet and toolkit, which lets you know which part of the cycle that you're in. So it's all about simplicity and accessibility, and we hope you really enjoy it. I'm now going to hand you over to the key team to speak to you today, which is Volunteering Victoria. We want to introduce that team to you. They're doing a fantastic job at getting good at understanding what sport is about. So I'll hand you now to Gillian Garner to talk through.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're really delighted to have so many of you on the webinar today. Thanks, Lisa and Jill, and thank you, Kieren, for your insights as well. I am Gillian Garner, the Membership and Policy Officer at Volunteering Victoria. We are a fairly small team, but there are a couple of us on the webinar today. Our acting CEO, Antoine Julien-May, is on, and our Sports Vic Membership Officer, Melissa Wright, is another person that you may well deal with if you contact us. But there are a couple of others like Liz and Jen on, but you could get any of us if you call us. And there are a number of us who will be supporting you. So Volunteering Victoria is the state peak body for volunteering, and we focus on advocacy, sector development, and the promotion of volunteering, which means that we're all here to support the work you do with your volunteers. We know, as you do, that volunteering does not just happen, and we're here to support you, to listen to you, guide you, work with you, and advocate for you on your behalf. We try and seek funding for the sector, and we try and ensure that your volunteers and your volunteer managers and coordinators are supported, appreciated, and recognized. Finding a way to reach the thousands of sporting clubs that are out there in Victoria and to help them to manage their volunteers which are essential to their existence, has long been a bit of a concern for us, particularly because we're relatively small. Volunteering numbers were already declining in the years leading into COVID. And of course, then the terrible impact that COVID has had on our sports clubs, which you're all well aware of, and then on volunteering numbers generally, has been very hard to see. Volunteering is critical to a collaborative, sustainable, thriving community. You know, in 2020, there were 2.3 million Victorians who volunteered in some shape or form, with a value of 58.1 billion to our state. This is a sector that needs to be taken seriously. And yet there are many volunteering involving organizations and their volunteer leaders who are largely left alone to deal with the immense task of finding, managing, and retaining volunteers to keep their organizations running. Managers and leaders of volunteers need recognition for the complex role that they have in managing this workforce, and they are a workforce, and they need support that is easy to access. At Volunteering Victoria, we also have a strong continuing professional development program, which supports the learning and professional development of your volunteer managers and coordinators. Some member organizations enroll all of their teams in a way to ensure their development progresses through the year. So there is significant support for those managers and leaders. And our mentoring program is also available to members and their teams. We are extremely excited by this collaboration with Vicsport and Regional Sport Victoria. And we have no doubt that this can make a huge difference to both the sport peak bodies and their member clubs in managing their volunteers. We do answer the phone, we respond to emails, so please contact us if you have questions or ideas or concerns. So apart from the sports-specific volunteering guides, which are now available, please take advantage of both our support through our guides, tools like Volpol, training, and our webinars, all of which you'll find on our website. And also the support of the various volunteering networks that are out there, because you're not alone in the issues you're dealing with, and sharing your practice and challenges in this space is very helpful. There's also an immense array of research into everything volunteering, including documented evidence on the benefits of volunteering and how to do it more effectively, which we can help you access. We work very closely with Volunteering Australia and with the other states, sharing research and our advocacy efforts and ideas to better support the sector. So keep an eye out for our newsletters, which will tell you what is coming up. And hopefully we can help make your volunteer management lives and those of the clubs you support easier. Thank you, everyone. Jill, I think that's pretty much, that covers most of what we were going to talk about today.
Julie, we might try to ask them if they have a bit of feedback to give us. So for those of you who are with us, we're endeavouring to get via Slido 2 poll questions up. If this doesn't work, I'm going to go and screen share and bring up my screen share to see if I can get it to work. So please bear with me for a minute while I go get that up. I think someone has just popped into the chat the URL for the website at Volunteering Victoria. If any of you wanted to go and have a play around with that, please feel welcome. I'm just going to bring my screen up so that we can do a couple of polls together. Excuse me while Slido gives its little bit of an advertisement. We'd love to know your biggest issue managing volunteers and or supporting clubs to manage volunteers. If you would like to use your phone to go up to the QR code, we're pretty good at that after a couple of years of COVID. Please free to put that in, and Slido will actually bring up your thoughts and we can see that in real time. We'll also collect that information and use it. So believe it or not, if you put your ideas in, we're actually going to bounce off these ideas and factor those in to the project and into our thinking. So looking forward to seeing what anybody has got to tell us about that. Yeah. I think we could probably all.
Oh, there we go.
Yep.
It's working.
Getting enough volunteers for all the jobs at the venue. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Governance is it's a really big one, isn't it? Now, in our resources, we've started to break them up between governance and game day. So to try to let clubs have things which relate to two different things. Burnout. Insurance, a great question. Gillian, did you want to talk about insurance coverage and volunteers at all?
Well, just that it is an issue that comes up, particularly with smaller organizations in the sort of not-for-profit space, and I'm assuming some of the smaller clubs. It would be great to get some feedback because we are exploring with DFFH options for maybe trying to find some sort of insurance coverage for smaller organizations, because a lot of organizations will have public liability, but they won't necessarily have personal injury insurance for volunteers who may be injured while they are carrying out their duties. So it is something that pops up quite often.
So Gillian, if a club has a question or an SSA has a question, can they contact you, the team at Volunteering Victoria, to talk that through?
Absolutely. So they either they can come directly to myself or to Melissa, or if they go through the Our Info email, we all monitor that, and we'll try and find the right person to kind of get back to you, or Melissa or I will talk to you, and we're happy to chat it through as well. But whatever feedback you give us is information that we can use in terms of trying to work out what the sector needs and build our advocacy, right? So we are in contact with, mostly we work through DFFH, but obviously also other departments as well, and we can feed that information through and try and make changes.
Thank you.
And yes, obviously screening is obviously is an area, and trying to make it easier for volunteers to volunteer, but at the same time protecting vulnerable communities. Often children in clubs have to be protected. We know we have, new child safety regulations, and I think Vicsport have done a lot on this as well. So it's making that access easy to those resources.
Yeah. There's some fantastic feedback coming in, probably not a lot of which is surprising us, but it's good to see it all out there. One of the comments is about creating manageable roles. So some of the tools that we've created for you is to give to a club to teach them how to break jobs down into smaller jobs, group them together and create manageable roles. So not just say that you should do it, but try to give them tools which allow them to work out how to do that for themselves and take control at that level. It'll be fantastic to get your feedback about the success of those tools as we go forward, so we can adjust and change. Yeah.
And we're very aware of the workload that is put often onto a small number of volunteers. So the idea with this is to have very simple guides that you can share out, and understanding that your volunteers need flexibility. Some might only want to do an hour on game day, and others might be happy to come and spend a whole morning. So it's to make it easier for you to adjust what is available for your volunteers, to get as many onboarded as possible.
Okay, I might, that poll is fantastic. Thank you for that feedback. I might close that one, and then we've got a second polling question that I'd like to follow up with you. And it goes like this. Get the Slido advertisement again. I'm sorry, folks. Really important question. What can we do to make it easy for your clubs to access and utilise the resources? We think we're trying to achieve that, but it'll be really good to get your thoughts about it. So we're creating accessibility via websites. The PDFs are all linkable, so any links are in them will go straight through to where your resources are. The resources are free and easy to use. And We are encouraging your membership to understand what's available so we can then in turn push clubs to gain membership as well. So the whole idea of getting you guys into it is so you can see the environment and hopefully encourage your clubs to become part of it.
Free membership one is obviously is an interesting one. I think the tricky part for us is that there are thousands of clubs and we are fairly small in terms of the support we can provide. So we would have to look, but again, that's an issue for advocacy, right? It's looking for funding to clubs to take up a membership that will give them the support that they need. But at this point, what we're hoping is that the peak bodies will be able to filter that down to their clubs. And we are very happy to field calls from clubs and to support them as much as we possibly can.
So Gillian, just in terms of your membership costs, it's based on member numbers, isn't it?
It's based on turnover.
Turnover.
So
sorry.
It starts at $70 and in terms of a fairly small turnover to the biggest organizations that might be much larger than that. Okay. So I think the most expensive is $400.
Yeah. So some fantastic feedback coming in. The website's now live. We've popped the URL for that into the chat, and following this webinar, there will be an email that goes out which links you into the relevant website as well. So you can start looking at the resources yourself. I genuinely appreciate any feedback. We're hoping that we've made the resources simple and succinct and in plain English. But you tell us if it isn't, then we will be able to change them quite easily. The toolkit is, we've made them into simple Word documents that the club literally can copy paste into a document and put their own header on. We're trying to make it that simple for you. Really appreciate the comment about getting champions in club to take on volunteer management. We've put in a position description for a volunteer coordinator, and we're suggesting that it's a tough one. And I agree with all of you encouraging it. It certainly would have helped a lot of the work that I've done as a volunteer in sport to have those things available. If we encourage those things of our clubs, I think that could be quite powerful. This webinar is the first in a series of webinars that Volunteering Victoria are looking to do. This is with you as the SSAs and RSAs through Victoria, but you're right, the following webinars will be directed towards our clubs. They'll be done at times that are friendly for volunteers in clubs to participate, and it will be focusing on what their direct needs are. So we will love to have you involved as the SSAs, but moving forward, we are trying to get this information out to the grassroots of where all our sport happens. A template strategy, that's a good idea. Yep.
One of the items here is on volunteering strategy, and that's an example where maybe the Sports Vic guides might not cover that, but if you look on the Volunteering Victoria website, there will be pointers in terms of volunteering strategy. And if you can't find something, just ask us and we'll point you in the right direction. But there are a lot of guides and templates on those kind of things.
That's a really great point. Thanks, Gillian. For all of you on this webinar, we've created resources that we think are a starting point. But if you tell us what you think you need, we can create it for you. It's you know, we're wanting to make it happen to assist you. So getting us that information and feedback is absolutely invaluable, because that is how we want to continue to go forward. For those out of interested, there's a really, one of the fact sheets is around recruitment. It's a massive issue, recruitment. And so it goes into a number of different ways that I had never thought about at club level. But it goes into ways that clubs can start looking at to take control of how they're going to recruit. They're just going to recruit maybe a bit differently and a bit more broadly, but we're trying to make it accessible. And we're hoping that's quite powerful for your clubs to be able to get onto that reasonably quickly.
And I think this is an example of, so at Volunteering Victoria, we obviously deal with the whole sector. So we have a range of different activities, not just sport. but we can benefit from something that may be done in another little niche area in recruitment, which is working, right? Is getting people back in, and then sharing that. So the more we kind of share who's doing what, the more we will all benefit from it.
I've just seen a comment there about negotiating a group fee on behalf of our clubs. Thank you for the query and the idea. Because I'm using Slido, we're collecting all of your feedback so that we will take it back and be able to go through all of your questions. Now I'm feeling like
we're very happy to look at all of that in terms of memberships, because this collaboration has kind of started something which we are very excited about, and it just gives us access into clubs that we perhaps didn't. It was just really hard for us to reach them, whereas now we have that access, which is brilliant. So we will look at all of these ideas and try and find ways of doing that.
Thanks, Gillian. I'm feeling like we've probably got as much feedback as we are going to get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we'll take that on board. I'll close the poll off now. An email will be coming out after the webinar in which we will be seeking more feedback. So plenty of chances to still get to us. What I am thinking of doing now, just looking at the time, is we might finish the poll and close that and then open up to any questions, should anyone have any questions at this point. How does that sound?
Maybe just to say, Gillian, I think the idea was to put into the email any ideas or suggestions you've got for a follow-up email on specific topics.
Yes.
So it may be that we look at a particular area that a lot of clubs are really struggling with, and we find experts to come in and work through that with them. So that sort of feedback will be really useful.
Yes. Just wondering if anyone has any questions for us out there. Are we all quiet?
Just pop up a hand if anyone does, or in the chat. Megan, do you want to say anything from Regional Sport Victoria?
I think I've seen a hand up from Sharon.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I keep changing my headset to speaker and etc. So Sharon from Paddle Victoria. I was actually the one who put in the comment in the poll then about changing the reference to volunteer, because I am wondering, what does the reimagining the volunteering sector look like? Because I can't see how we reimagine it, because it's been the same for a long time, and a lot of the tools and the approach that you're taking, I think we have been utilising that sort of approach for a long time. But I actually do wonder whether there's what people think volunteering is, and whether we actually need to almost relabel what we want from them, because they are a workforce, and I think volunteering has a different connotation to what we actually maybe want from them. So I'm struggling with, how do we reimagine it? Because at the end of the day, we actually still need them to be doing the same jobs that we've always asked them to do. So what does reimagining look like? How do we actually present it differently? How do we encourage people to participate? How do we get them to engage? How do we get them to, and I know small chunks is a good strategy, but still at the end of the day, they are a workforce, and how do we engage them? So I guess, what do you think reimagining in the workforce looks like? It's a great word, but I can't visualize it yet.
Want me to have a go at that one, Jill?
More than happy for you to do that, Lisa.
I don't think I have a complete answer for you, Sharon. It's a very good question, but I think some of the stuff that's come up from the national work It's been done by the Australian Sports Commission and Volunteering Australia and by the Victorian Government. So separate to this project, again, there's a lot of work going on in the background around volunteering. Is one thing with regards to sport is that a lot of people that volunteer in other areas think sport's all sorted and we have all our volunteers and we have enough because we've got people that have done it before and we've got the parents and we've got this and we've got that. And yet our numbers are dwindling in those people that may stay on or come back or think about sport. We're not getting to the volunteer that might be thinking, a bit of spare time, I'm semi-retired, I want to volunteer. They're thinking food bank, asylum seeker resource centre, Red Cross. They're not thinking sport. We haven't branded ourselves well in that area, and that's part of the work that Kieren's team is going to support us on and link into this project. The other thing is a lot of different communities, new arrivals, different communities that are not only new to Australia but might not have English as their first language. They don't use the word volunteering. They do a lot of work in their community to support each other, but they don't think of it in the same way as other people might. So we need to present the ideas and the call to action in a very different way. So they're just a couple of things that have come up in discussions around that reimagining, but certainly to your point, there's a long way to go to what that actually means and what little projects or pilots or words or brands that we can use to make sure we are reimagining to make a bit of a difference. Because while we all know that COVID has influenced volunteer numbers and the ways we do things, the dropping in volunteers wasn't caused by COVID. It's been an issue that's been on the table for a while across the board, but obviously we're discussing it in sport. But so we need to, the reimagining is to try to get everyone have a call to action in their mind about that we need to do things differently. We can't continue to do the same over and over again and expect a different result, much the same as anything in life. But your point's very good, and it keeps us thinking about, well, what does it actually mean? What else can we do? And hopefully as we kind of gather up your ideas and all the ideas across the board, we'll be able to answer your question in full in sooner rather than later. But thank you, Sharon. It's a very good point.
Yeah, it's a great point. Thank you, Sharon.
It is, and Sharon, just to say, there is a lot of work that's being done in this space, particularly because there's a much bigger focus now on inclusion. And the moment you start looking at that, you realize that, as Lisa says, the term community giving is used in a lot of communities. And so we have to look at a different way of presenting what volunteering is. And when we do surveys, a lot of people don't put down the volunteering that they're doing when in fact they are doing it. So it's how to count how many people are actually helping out in the community, because they just think it's helping their community, right? They don't think of it in this formal term. Antoine, I don't know if you want to add something on that, just because you would know more what's happening at the sort of national level too.
Well, yeah, happy to jump in, and thank you everyone for joining us, and everyone who are leading this great project. I think sometimes there's a bit of over engineering as well at times, is that when we look at the reasons as to why people don't volunteer, we have a large portion of people, obviously it's time, pressure, cost of living and things like that, but a lot of people will answer, I've never been asked. And so for us is that reimagining is how do we reach out to more people to then really say we need you. And so how do we get creative and reaching out to these people, because to have such a high percentage of people saying I'm not volunteering because I haven't been asked, then how do we get to we've asked you and hopefully the answer is yes. So sometimes it's simple ways of creating that momentum. And in the way we advertise roles, a lot of people will say, well, I can't help you on the day, but I'm very good at graphic design. So in terms of the skills that we ask for our volunteers, sometimes we ask for specific roles rather than what are the skills that you can give. So it's minor changes, but in how we allow for micro volunteering as opposed to long-term commitment. And it comes with challenges, but I think that's where we see a lot of potential. But how do we realize this potential? If it was easy, we'd already be doing it. So clearly there's no easy answers, but I think that's what we hear a lot in terms of small changes that can make a big difference.
Thanks, Antoine. Now, can I see anybody else with their hands up? Or any questions in the chat for us whilst we're here? I'm just aware of the time. We're wanting to make sure we get you back to your workers or lunch break as soon as possible. Any comments from anybody else? Megan, I'm just conscious we haven't had you talk. I just wondered if you wanted to talk to, particularly to our regionally based, well, there's RSAs on this webinar. I just wonder if you wanted to talk to some of our regionally based members of this webinar.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for the opportunity, Jill. And I note that Sharon's got her hand up, so I won't, perhaps we'll go to Sharon first, if you'd like to make a comment on your previous question.
Yeah, look, and I don't mean to be holding court or anything. What I was also going to say was that I think we need to really focus on the motivation as to why people volunteer, because there is the difference between somebody who does something to be paid in a job versus volunteering is the motivation. You get paid to do a job, and that's really your underlying motivation. If you don't get paid, then, you know, do you turn up? But we really need to work on the motivation and making people feel like they're contributing and why they're contributing, and really honing in on their motivation. And I think we need to give that more focus, because I think what happens is we tend to take advantage a lot of the time of people's time, and yes, they're contributing, and without really focusing on what we're giving them and making them being part. So the person who is the starter at the beginning of a race, or, you know, at the pool, is there for their reasons just as much as the person who's diving into the pool, and we need to respect and understand and meet those needs for those people as well. Even if they don't even know what those needs are, we need to highlight what they could be and really give that focus. And I think we forget, I certainly, because I'm involved in scout groups as well, and I forget that they're volunteering their times for their own purposes, and I need to remember how to meet those needs, because it's not financial. Financial's easy. If I paid you, it would be great, right? I just pay you, and so I think we need to focus on that. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you, Sharon. Just before I go to Megan, Sharon, we've tried to incorporate that very much into that action cycle and the resources that we've created, to your point. Really keen to hear your feedback to see if we think we've captured some of that. Certainly also encourage you to look at the work of the Australian Sports Commission, who are very mindful of that thought as well. So looking forward to your feedback about how we're tracking with the resources we've created to this point. So thank you for that. And then Megan, just quickly, we've got a minute or two left.
Yes, just very briefly, I think thank you to all the Regional Sports Assembly staff that are on the call today. We're really pleased to be part of this project, and certainly adding the regional lens to the project content. I think one of the items to highlight is as following what Lisa had mentioned, in that volunteer decline in sport isn't just a product of COVID. It was happening a long time before that, but it's just been accelerated as a result of that. And in a regional context where 82% of our regional landscape has actually been impacted by floods, it's going to have a greater effect. In discussions with the manager of flood recovery in Lismore Council, who have absolutely lived this process, one of the key things that they've outlined to us was that in those impacted areas that there was a significant decline in volunteers as well. So there was no better time for these resources to be released and to be able to help our clubs across the state, but particularly in those flood affected areas where volunteer decline will probably be accelerated again in the next year. So I encourage everyone on this call to share the resources, share them through your networks on your LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever social media. I'm not up with the times with all the TikTok jargon, etc. But whatever means that you have, carrier pigeon may that be, please send them out to all the volunteers in your networks, because it is something that will take that burden from them. It's a quick resource that's easy to follow, to be able to pull out and say, yep, this is going to make my life easier today. And I guess that's why our organisations exist, is to make the life easier for those who deliver sport on the ground for us. And there's no better time to highlight that without volunteers, grassroots sport doesn't exist. So thank you all for your time, and I'm really proud that Regional Sport Victoria has been able to contribute to this project with Vicsport and Volunteering Victoria. Thanks, Jill.
Thanks. I might just hand over to you, Lisa, now to be able to finish up the call.
Thank you, everyone. And I've got 1 minute because we promised timing, and we want to make sure we do that. We will, Volunteering Victoria will send out an email post this event to the people that could join us and others that couldn't join at the last minute. We will obviously have the link to the resources on the Volunteer Victoria website in that email, and anything else that's relevant. We will be sending out to all sports at some point, probably in the new year, a pack of resources you can use on socials. But in the first instance, we can link people to the Volunteering Victoria website, specifically the sport resources. We'll be rolling out comms across the next few months, and that will include adding resources to that pack of information as we go along. And as Julian said, videos of examples of things that are going well in terms of volunteering. We'll also be launching this project formally at some point with Minister's help, and we'll just keep promoting the resources. So, you know, in our minds, we'd like to get every club to understand the resources are there, where they are, and how they can help them. And as Julian said, we'd love your feedback as you see the resources, because we can make changes to those to make them more relevant to clubland. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you at our next Volunteering Victoria Sport information session, and we'll see some of you online for Vicsport information calls. But Merry Christmas and a good new year, and we'll see you in 2023 for a calmer, bigger and better, no COVID, no floods, no locusts type year. Would be very nice. So Merry Christmas, everybody, and thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Santa brings you some good presents. Thanks, everyone. Bye.